Okay. And through the University of Alaska Center for Economic Development, and received some funding from USDA Rural Business Opportunities grants that's enabling us to host this Build Your Business Rural Entrepreneur webinar series. So we will have a number of webinars within this series, and we invite you to join all of those. I will email you all a flyer so that you have a list of all webinars in the series, and it's also available on our website, which is AKSourceLink.com. Presenter today is Renata Ballesteros, and she works with us here at the CED on the co-op program. And she's going to be presenting to you today on rural Arctic co-ops. But before she does, I want to give you a brief introduction to AKSourceLink and kind of who we are as a program and how you can utilize us to help bolster businesses in your region. Mute all of your lines. So if you have a question, be sure to use the chat box there. I don't know. Okay, AKSourceLink, a free online tool that's available to help build businesses across Alaska, especially in rural Alaska. It's completely free to access. We have a partner network of 145 different resource providers from all across Alaska. Some of those providers are statewide and others are just regional. Our governmental, university, and nonprofit entities are all there to service small businesses in one capacity or another. You can ask a SourceLink by visiting AKSourceLink.com, or you can call us on the toll-free hotline number, which is 8885-LINK-A, and is also on the screen there. Resources that you can access through AKSourceLink. We have a business blog updated about once or twice a week, and it has contributions from business bloggers all in the U.S. We have a newsletter which goes out once a month, and that's going to have a highlight of different events that we have going on, different new posts that have come up in our blog, and then also just some other pertinent information specifically for Alaskan businesses and Alaska business resource providers. We have a calendar of statewide events. You can see all the different things that are business related happening around the state, especially lots of trainings that are available in rural regions. The Small Business Development Center has started broadcasting a lot of their trainings through webinar platforms, similar to what we're using here today. So you can access those on the calendar. If you want to know which events are happening in your region, you can click on your region on the State of Alaska picture beneath the calendar listing, and you can have it narrowed down specifically to what you want to find there. We have a resource library, which has just a vast array of different resources that can have useful and pertinent information for business owners. So everything from starting your business to resources specific for women-owned businesses, to finding financing, to marketing, all sorts of different topics. You can browse through the library and just view a lot of different resources that'll be helpful for you. Something more specific, if you want to get connected with a resource provider because you have a specific question about your business, then you can utilize the Resource Navigator. It's a search engine that allows you to list what type of business you are and what type of resource you need assistance with, and then you can select from resource providers close to your zip code or across state. You can also browse through a directory to get a listing of all of the different resource providers in our network. And from that, you can just get kind of a general idea of who's up there and what they're able to do to assist your business. And finally, I'd like to encourage you all to connect with us on social media. We do have a Facebook page as well as a Twitter page. And you can get a lot of up-to-date resources there, find out what's happening around with our program. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the reins over to Renata, who is to talk to us all about rural Arctic co-ops.
Can you hear me? It took a little while to share my screen, so in the meanwhile, I'll just tell you a little about myself. We're the Alaska Co-op Development Center. We are also funded by USDA, and we help groups start co-ops, or we give assistance to people who already have co-ops and research or trying to do some research, market research, run meetings, pretty much connect to whatever people need. Let's see. This might be working with WebEx, and I'm new also to the software I'm using for presentation.
I went ahead and made you presenter, so you're just going to go up to share my desktop.
Okay.
This is so awesome. How it's live.
Also, if you have any questions, the best way to reach me is the chat box. Just in case I can't hear you or I'm missing something, I'm gonna have Melissa step in and call my in the end for questions too. So you will be noticed eventually if we don't do it that way. So. Renata, and where my accent is from. I grew up in Mexico, but I've been living in Alaska since 2005 and got my BA in International Studies at UAA here in Anchorage. I'm working for the Alaska Cooperative Development Center for about a year. And Melissa approached me to do this presentation. As rural Arctic co-ops, we're hoping to be able to include examples from Finland and from Sweden, other Scandinavian co-ops, but then I stumbled upon a lot of research by Dr. Lou Hammond and the University of Saskatchewan. And very impressive research on Aboriginal co-ops that seemed more relevant to Alaska, but if we would still eventually hear about co-ops, I would be happy to do this again. So all your feedback is very welcome. So first, start with some definitions. Research I found they use the term Aboriginal to describe their co-ops. Just stick to them for now. If everyone's okay with that, but it's understandable that I am talking about Inuit, Cree, and First Nations in Canada. And the definition is, what is a co-op? There's a lot of confusion around with this term. So I'm going to do some definitions and so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Co-op, I mean a business. To USDA, this is a user-owned, user-controlled business that distributes benefits on the basis of use. So we're going to go over a few qualities of co-ops. So here are one main distinguishing factors of a co-op from other businesses. It's first, there to generate benefits for members, not to generate returns for investors. Can be either consumers, workers, producers, or any of the above. Usually membership fee, it can be anywhere from $1 to $15,000. It depends on the co-op. And there usually is a member agreement to stipulating what are the expectations from a member and what it means to them, what are going to be their benefits. The factor of a co-op, as opposed to a traditional business, is who controls it. Members who control it. So consumers control this democratically. Every member has one vote in major decisions of the company, and also electing the board of directors democratically, and usually this vote happens once a year. Who for this co-op? The benefits, if any, are distributed among members. Summarize their identity through 7 principles that were stipulated by the International Cooperative Association in Geneva. voluntary and open membership, democratic control, member participation, for members, and then cooperation among co-ops. That's one. Community concern being the last one. And this is all really fluffy, but it is surprising how many co-ops take them very much to heart and make them part of their identity. So this is about, I'm going to give you a little bit of historical context. The first modern co-op appeared in Rochdale, England. This is Robert Owen. He was a tradesman, mostly from the cotton industry, but he has this vision of having workers control their own workspaces and having consumers control their own businesses. They came about in Rochdale by a group of 20 weavers. That is, this is a store. Started with very, very little. They had to study a lot of attempts towards collective ownership of a business. So they were the first group to codify those co-op principles. They were supposed to split up the price according to use. So they came up with a structure that we think of as a co-op. And the groups in Canada had already been cooperating for ages, so it is really unfair to say that some European people came back and taught them how to cooperate, because that's all how it worked. Was in the 1950s in Canada that came behind when it comes to services, when it came to an access to, but still able to have trade. So there were champions that started helping translate their to policy into how the business together. So these people were Alphonse Jardin. He's a journalist from Quebec who thought about co-ops in Europe and went and out and thought they were really good, so he came back and started a finance co-op in his hometown. And Paul Gott, Alexander Sprutz, and Andrew Goussert were immigrants from Lithuania and Belgium, came to the north of Canada, and they had traveled extensively. Andrew Goussert spoke Inuit, and they lobbied with the government to help secure resources and funding to help northern villages to start co-ops. So, have any questions? I know it's really fast and it's a lot of information. Okay. I'm in my chat box. Keep going. Please send me a message through the chat box, or feel free to mute yourself and if you're having some trouble.
Hey, Renata, I wanted to let folks know that in order to access the chat box, you're just going to slide your cursor up to the top of the screen, and a little drop down is going to appear, and on that you just hit chat. Chat box will appear. So if it's not already on your screen, that's how you get it. All right, I'm sure folks know.
Okay. Yeah, no, I have to know. Okay. So we have currently 123 Aboriginal co-ops are owned fully by either Inuit, Cree, or a First Nation member. Invitations are on 33, and those were numbers from 2001. It looks like there has been some mergers, and they probably lost a couple along the way, but there's 18 in retail, 10 in fishing, and they are all over the place when it comes to economics. So there's some care, home care, child care, there's that do consulting. Culture, housing is also a really big one, and art co-ops. To have strong, they actually work with the retail ones pretty closely. The started in 1945. We're mostly in the fishing sector, and with the arts and crafts sector remarkably well. 1999, more than 1,000 artists were this would market their art to get. You can see this kind of art on their website, and it's really impressive. It's a very important source of income. The regions in remote communities are the ones that have made the most social and economic impact. So we're the ones I wanted to focus on today. In the 1950s, as cost of goods was a major issue and there were only 2 chain stores dominating the region, co-ops, because they were very transparent in their accounting systems, every member, and they have the authority to look at their financial statements and understand them. So they could cover all the charges that were being levied on the goods that are sold, and became really good market regulators for pricing of consumer goods. Later on in the 1970s, one members got together and under the Arctic Co-ops Limited. So this is of really small rural co-ops. The number of employees is 12 people, so this is really small. They'll make a revenue of 190 million in 2013, or actually their sales. The refunds, so we got back from it as members of the co-op was 11.2 million. They employ 1,000 people together, and they have 23,000 members. Is that they're divided in 7 regions, and they work together to the board of directors. Each of them has 1, so they can be represented equally. They run the Arctic Cooperative Development Fund, which I will explain briefly. And then there's Arctic Cooperative Limited, the sole office, and what helps them do is that they share auditing services and also education services, which is very, very important. It can be one of the biggest expenses. They do bulk buying for them. It's so. Study, so you get an idea of what these stores look like. It's located in Cambridge Bay. Their business is 1,600 people. Cambridge Bay is north of Nunavut. So 1,000 feet grocery store that carries dry goods. They have loading dock, storage facilities, an office, just pretty much everything you need to run a grocery store. But also they decided to do an arts and crafts outlet and a sewing center. Just part of the community thought it would be fun, have potential. It operates a 24-room hotel, a room, at times with 3 vehicles, and it also provides cable TV for the village that's over, so you guys can files over there. Employs 27 people full-time and 12 part-time. 1,400 members. Their board meets once a month, elected once a year, and handle complaints, they plan policies. They don't do the everyday running of the store. They hire a manager to do that for them. On the other hand, they, like I said, they meet once a year, and the only to be a member is to over 18 years old and pay $15. So shop at the co-op for the representative. This is one of Andrew Gussert's. He was the one who helped the Belgian guy I mentioned before. He helped in the process of putting this together with the elders. It started as a hotel originally, and until the 1980s that it became a grocery store based on that model. A lot of difficulties. They first had to house this place in those buildings because they couldn't afford. They couldn't build anything. Slowly, they got some support from the University of Virginia and from the federal government. They built their first store. Major moves. Well, there's managers from outside of the community at first. So one of their major strategy moves was they had a unanimous vote to train locals and employ only locals in the co-op system. A major task because their general education was only up to 6th grade, as what was the average in the village. So with the help of Fort Smith College, they developed a curriculum to help train their managers. Their manager? Oh, looks like we got stuck. What's going on?
This is Mr. Notak. Can I ask a quick question? The picture I'm looking at, it reminds me of Fairbanks, Alaska. Late 80s, they had a store. It was called Coop, and they had a restaurant and a store similar to the pictures you're showing. Have you heard of that? It was that area.
Justly, I've been to Fairbanks and I've seen their co-op plaza, so I was wondering if that's what it was before.
Late 80s, maybe early 90s, and they closed down, but called Co-op, and it had a restaurant and a store.
Oh, no. Well, is there a new co-op?
No, I haven't been there.
Oh, that's really nice.
Thank you.
Sure. Manager, Bill Lyle, he was information from a case study that included an interview with him. So part of the success of this particular co-op is that Bill was so dedicated to it. He spent about 15 years working for them, and he excuse me, but he decided to expand a lot of the services from the co-op, including cable, really listen to the community's needs. By 1993, its assets has grown from $300,000 to $2.3 million. So that's Bill Lyle, one of the needs of this co-op program. So that's the only ones. There are 30 locations around Canada that are part of this network. So you can see over there their locations on the map. So some of them are way up north, but similar stuff. Some of them have repair shops, rentals for snow machines, organized charter for tourists. They provide mail service, fuel deliveries. Some of them have video shops. Also construction sites to help the houses around the co-op, around the village. These are amazing entrepreneurship when it gets engaged, that they've been really good at finding businesses that made economic sense to them and that they were covering a need that wasn't being met in the co-op. So the authors call them remarkable testimonies of Aboriginal capacity to tailor business activities.
Renata, you have another question in your chat box.
Oh, I don't see it. Question. So what does now the co-op, the numbers appear, almost everyone is a member. Is it the under 18 population? Yes, that's what I'm guessing. It's similar. The population is pretty much a member of a co-op. And if they're not active in there, they probably get a membership at some point. And that's what I guess. So, Kathy?
Yes, in looking at the numbers, it was pretty close to the number that you gave the population versus numbers, and that's where I just was curious if you knew the answer, whether it was just the children.
Okay. I don't know about this particular co-op. In another case, a study that was shown in this report, there were a group in the itself who was very, very devoted to that also ran their other grocery store in the village, because it had given credit to their families during the war and some sense of member loyalty for a different store. I know that is the case also, but that accounts for some of the loss of membership to population. Some of the most important contributions, though, to the community from the co-ops is physical infrastructure. And so they're creating communications or facilities or just services that were provided neither by the government or by the private sector. Mostly, and this is according also to Lou Hammond, that the personal infrastructure that was built by those businesses was much more valuable than any of the physical infrastructure. So not stores, they demanded member involvement. They demanded people to learn how to vote, how to work together, how to communicate with each other. And those are very valuable soft and hard to life skills. And Canada have made a really big effort to educate their members to know how to read financial statements and how to do leadership development. Okay. Researchers identified also enhanced self-esteem and sense of belonging as a result of working with a co-op. A large percentage of the members that were participating in this development of the co-op eventually became hamlet managers, and they created housing associations, and some of them actually became members of parliament of the Hamlet legislature. Pushing point for a lot of these people to have enough education to something certain bigger, better eventually. And then the social infrastructure that was gained, all of a sudden these very remote communities had access to a network with others just like them that could tell them, give them of what they were doing right or what they were doing wrong. Better. There was a lot of exchange of ideas. Hey, you have cable. I want cable. How did you do it? And they could share also training programs for managerial expertise. Information added to this cases is that we're hiring local workers or local mechanics instead of other businesses that would bring in side. They're vehicles for advancing Aboriginal traditions. So all of them had their signs in their traditional languages. They emphasized traditional foods. They nowadays to continue cultural practices such as dance or in particular it's not all bread and roses in these businesses. They do a lot of challenges the one being education. So I mentioned good math is very, very difficult to find, and this is not the only case. This is not Arctic co-op, this is for all co-ops. Managers is that to truly understand what co-ops are and how they're run and how looking balance sheet is not the most important thing to this type of business. So during the mid-70s, the federal government provided $100,000 annually training programs, and they even started a co-op college in Saskatchewan. This college had to be absorbed by different organizations, but to keep going. Is that the courses could be they're off at times, so people would get discouraged and drop out. So rates were very, very high in personnel. As to find somebody brilliant, and they would starting them, they would lose either because they have businesses of their own, or they would go and work for the legislature, or simply get a better job in one of bigger cities. So trying for salaries, it's very tough. Trying to accommodate requests for holidays or help pay for airfare. So that's a continual struggle. They are still trying to work out. It's almost impossible to pay someone more than $17 an hour. To finance. During these, this group almost faced bankruptcy. They got a $3.2 million loan to be bailed out by the government, which is not unusual compared to other businesses, private businesses, corporations were getting from the government at the time as well. And they created a revolving fund called Native Economic Development Program, and a couple of million Department of Indian Affairs. But this development fund, they helped a permanent pool capital available to them, so when that they pay back without interest rates. Years, this fund has not seen a default yet, and it has expanded quite a bit. So that's been relatively successful. There's still ways to improve it, but it's been a labor of trial and error. They are still facing difficulty adapting the expectations of members. There's been cases where people feel have been getting money loaned to them immediately, or that just because they were friends with the people who were managing the business. Trying to keep the boundaries in a small town is still very challenging to them. Also, separating how much influence the leadership could have in the or what their role is in the community is something they're still trying to work out. Some of the ways that they see they are overcoming this, though, is through mentoring. They feel the best way to do this is by having Aboriginal organizations and governments teach each other. So they need to know Aboriginal people are learning about co-ops from other Aboriginal people that understand their concerns. And they keep in the education. Education is still their main priority. All ups and downs, and even though they've lost a couple of co-ops along the way, they still make $50 million in yearly sales. This all comes from the main website, and I'll cite the references if you want to look at the numbers yourself. They $50 million in assets. The fund that started with only $10 million, maybe 20 years ago, now it has $28 million. It's the Aboriginal Co-op Development Fund. About $7 million average in savings. Even though that seems really little compared to how much they make in sales, $7 million that are going right back to the communities. They're not going anywhere else. So, quote, that Limited is proud is that members did not want people from the outside of their communities coming in and establishing businesses to provide services. We want to develop the services ourselves. We all keep the profits from our business and to use them to develop and better services for our members and provide employment within our communities. The model was the best way for us to meet these goals.
From James Henry in the chat box.
I'm sorry. So I was part of a big co-op group. There's, as I said before in one of the slides, there's 9 co-ops and only 30 are part of this federation. And so there's detail. That have made federations similar to the one we just covered. There's about 20 people down by Prince William Island, so not necessarily part of this federation.
Do we have for Renata?
Yes, this is Kathy. Would be of the communities that you looked at, what was the best way of dealing with the small town politics?
It's very much into detail. The I'm reading this off is report on Aboriginal co-ops in Canada. It's about a 400-page report. They only devoted maybe 1 page to the small town politics. I could ask her. She's very good at answering emails. But in establishing policy, had it down. Somebody wants to get a loan from the co-op, then you have a document that says, you know, this is not me personally denying you the loan because you're my friend. This is a policy of the co-op that is going to make it better in the end. That's what I have.
So, be interested in looking at getting started. Resource would you send them to as far as starting point?
Well, contact us at the Co-op Development Center is the first step. We can send you some reading materials, and there's a lot of publications out there from USDA that have really good information on what the first steps would be. First thing you need to do is to see if there's interest in your community. See if there are over 6 people who think this is a really great idea and are willing to help you out. Reach it, because I think a co-op is over of a lot of time. It's going to be a commitment of maybe 3 years. If you send me an email, we'd be happy to share some materials with you. Yeah?
I just want to let everybody know that we are going to make the presentation available to folks, so you can get a copy of Renata's Prizzy presentation that she used, as well as the introduction slides to SourceLink, so you can follow links there. Because we recorded the conversation, we will have this available, linked to it through the AKSourceLink website, so you can just share that link with anyone who's interested in it, and that way other folks can watch this webinar presentation, you know, even after the fact. And then also make sure you have hard copies. I don't think I get a list of everyone who signed on today, so if you are interested in a PDF copy of Renata's presentation, go ahead and email me. You should have my email address from the registration, but if not, it's similar to my name. It's A. Houston, HOUSTON, at uaalaska.edu. You can contact for him on the AKSourceLink website, and that will come to me. Just let me know we're at this webinar and you'd like a copy of the presentation, and I'll be sure to get that to you. Any questions from anybody?
More questions in the chat? More questions?
Yeah, really good example of co-ops that seems like village-wide. Do you have any examples of small co-ops?
A retail co-op. So,
like the local artist people, small, because artist is well, of course artist is usually one person once they start selling, right?
With a group of 5 or 6 people, so I think you would have a little more than that. They're all different.
What's that art co-op that I'm supposed to get the example of?
Yeah, the co-op. Yeah, marketing. There's a couple of examples. The document called is the 4th link and the resources page. It says Association, Cooperatives and Aboriginal Communities. This I can probably show it. Let's see if it lets me. This is the document I used. So they have a spreadsheet with all the co-ops in Canada that are owned that are in Aboriginal communities, and they have a little bit of information about each of them. For example, this one is Spirit Dance Cooperative Community. Only 4 people. Yes?
Share your screen again. I had already taken away your presenter capabilities, so go back to share my desktop. I just back.
Okay, excellent. Of the last reference, it will take you to this document, a database of all the co-ops in Canada that are in Aboriginal communities. So, Spirit Community, it's only 4 people, so that one's pretty small. They do organic vegetable farming. So they have their contact information in here, and wonderful thing about co-ops is that everybody's really friendly. That's a lot of cooperation among co-ops. It's pretty important. So I bet give a call to any of these people. They'll be happy to tell you about how to run and what their difficulties have been and how you can start one.
Thanks.
For Renata. I wanted to show you all just our list of the different webinars that we have coming up in this series. So I'm going to take on our capabilities here so you all can see that. So you're able to see it now. This just gives the list of all the different webinars. So in order to register for any of those, just go ahead and email me just like you did for this one. They'll each be about taking place about every week for the next couple of months. So thank you all for being here. I've already started getting a few emails from folks requesting the PowerPoint presentation, so I'll be sure that that gets out to you. And if you have any other questions about this webinar or future webinars, or if you have a specific topic that you'd like to see featured in a webinar, we don't have a topic determined yet for our very last webinar on September 17th, so I'd be happy to try and accommodate that as much as possible.
Melissa,
Yes.
Rebecca asked a very good question that's in the chat box there. Is the ability for co-ops to exist in partnership with regional or maybe even village corporations? I think that's a very good question.
Thank you. I didn't see that. Renata, are you able to address that?
See, why not? That's really flexible, so pretty much whether accommodates the interests of the members better. If they feel like having a partnership with a regional or village corporation would be in their best interest, I think that could make that happen. Legally, I would be able to tell you the details of that. Andrew, director of our program, is here with me in the room, so I'll tackle this one.
You'd have to think about what their role was going to be in it, and part of the other out is co-ops as with one vote for every member. You know, so a regional corporation or a village corporation would be a member. They, you know, vote.
Move closer to the speakerphone.
As all the other members, but they probably would be investing more money. I mean, that's why I would want them involved, is that they have more financial resources. But you get them involved if you have, you know, village or regional corporations involved in terms of helping to finance the. They can do that without being members. They could get preferred shares. They could do loans to the co-ops. There are a lot of ways that you could have regional and village corporations involved in them. So on the screen is, you know, who owns the co-ops. It is a corporation, and it's owned by the members. So the people who are using it own it.
In the case of this retail co-ops, the consumers, the people who shop there, are the ones who own the co-op collectively. So 1,400 people who were derived as their membership are there. Something I would like to add is that this is actually the second presentation I have ever done regarding co-ops. I'm looking for as much feedback as possible. So I can think of if I say so too much, or if you would like to see more of these, if you feel pressy, or if you don't like it, we would love to hear that.
I do have another question in the question box about who is the co-op owned by? Is it owned by a corporation?
We just covered that. The co-ops are owned by members.
And then a message from Eileen. This kind of reminds her of the Quakers when she lived in Philadelphia and New York, that the families had small stores that pretty much sold homemade goods.
There that really ring a bell with this. The kibbutz in Israel, very parallel models. So there's lots of ways to work this and community involvement. Okay.
Again, thank you everyone for being here, and I hope that you enjoyed this webinar and found all the information to be helpful. Thank you for speaking today.